U.S. election just 5 days away. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are spending most of their time in several swing states. In Wisconsin, Trump held a rally in Green Bay where he made what critics are calling a threatening remark about women. And he did it using his familiar impression of a staffer.
I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said we think it's very inappropriate for you to say, so why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. Well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
So the former president was dressed in a bright orange safety vest to troll Democrats. He took aim at comments made by current President Joe Biden a couple of days ago, who appeared to call Trump supporters garbage. So Trump was trying to dress up as a garbage person. Biden says that's not what he meant.
We have an opportunity in this election to turn the page on a decade of Donald Trump trying to keep us divided and afraid of each other.
Kamala Harris was also in Wisconsin, warning voters about the divisiveness she says a second Trump presidency would bring. Harris reminded the crowd the Supreme Court has 3 judges that Trump picked to overturn Roe v. Wade. Joining me now to discuss is Michael Fauntroy. He's a political analyst with George Mason University. Good morning to you. Good to see you. So let's talk about the gaffe from Joe Biden and how much it could hurt Kamala Harris in these final days of the campaign.
Yeah, it certainly was a gaffe. It's not something that the Harris campaign wants to deal with, particularly this close to the election. But you know, Marcia, I don't know that there's anybody who was going to vote for her and is now going to not vote for her because of what President Biden said, when there's a mountain of other things that former President Trump has said that are at least as offensive. So in that regard, I'm not sure that it's going to have a big impact. It was certainly the wrong thing to say. The timing was terrible. But I think if we sort of weigh it against all the other things that are going on in the campaign and all of the other things that voters say they are concerned about, I'm not sure this is going to move any votes.
How important are these last few days of campaigning, particularly in those key swing states where both candidates are spending the bulk of their time?
So I think it's a particularly critical time because this is when you begin to energize your workers to go out and comb the communities to make sure they drive the voters to the polls. And so if there's energy going into the last weekend before the election, that may help boost a candidate in a particular battleground state. And when you look at what's going on in Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, all of these states are within a point or two in either direction. So it's possible that a few thousand votes here or a few thousand votes there could end up making a difference in who wins that state and therefore the presidency.
What polls are you watching and what are you looking for when you read them?
So one of the things I'm looking for is whether the poll is of registered voters or likely voters. And I only pay attention to those, or only sort of pay close attention to those that are likely voters. The other sort of key variable that I'm looking at is trend lines. So where have the numbers been moving over the course of the last month or so, or the last 2 weeks or so? I think that tells you a lot more than focusing on one poll by one organization at one particular time. It's easy to get caught up in all of the polls that are existing right now. So you have to sort of look at it with a little more context, a little more nuance to get a better sense of what's going on, acknowledging, of course, that polls can sometimes be wrong and in some cases badly so.
A lot of law enforcement agencies seem to be gearing up for possible violence on election night. It is believed by many that Trump is going to come out and claim victory, even if the results are not fully tallied. As you look towards Tuesday and Wednesday, what goes through your mind? What do you expect could happen if there is not a very clear winner?
So this is the piece that worries me the most, Marcia. I live in Washington, D.C., and January 6th happened not far from my house. And I am deeply concerned by some of the early things I'm hearing about ballot boxes being spurned in states across the country, and groups intimidating voters at early voting sites. I'm concerned about what's going to happen on Wednesday and Thursday if there is no clear winner. The fact, though, is, Marcia, there's not likely to be a clear winner, in part because some states have changed their vote counting rules that the early votes cannot even begin to be counted until November 5th, which means that it's very possible that we won't have an outcome. And if we don't, then that creates a vacuum for former President Trump and his supporters, for example, to run out and claim victory, even if they haven't won. And at that point, anything can happen.
Michael Fauntroy, he is a political analyst with George Mason University. Michael, good to see you this morning, and we'll chat with you again next week on Election Day. Starting